Good morning, everybody. My name is Tom Pellicano, and today I will be presenting on behalf of the team that worked with the Natural Resources Defense Council on their Urban Solutions program. So I'd like to start off by thanking our faculty advisor, Nancy Degnan, for her support and guidance, as well as my team for all of their hard work and dedication. And I'd like to say thank you for our client for coming today as well. Oops. So to start off, I'll briefly reintroduce who our client is and what their Urban Solutions program entails. And then I will speak about what they asked us to create to assist in the development of urban solutions, and speak briefly to the methods we used in order to complete that task. And then I'll go through what our key findings were and how those findings informed our recommendations for the NRDC. So the Natural Resources Defense Council is an environmental action and advocacy group. They work to promote sustainable policies at all levels of government. A recent focus of theirs has been resilience in an urban context. So resilience is often defined as the ability to absorb shocks to the system while also maintaining essential functions. Currently, right now, resilience is most commonly studied in individual sectors. So for example, resilience in the energy sector or resilience in the transportation sector. However, our client believes that it is important to study these sectors in an integrated manner in order to get a bigger picture of what resilience means in an urban context. And that was really the catalyst for their Urban Solutions program. So Urban Solutions aims to transform cities into strong, just, and resilient communities. To aid in this transformation, they believe that cities should focus their data collection efforts as well as eventual policy actions within 4 key initiative program areas. And this chart here we lifted from their strategic plan highlights those areas. They are energy efficiency, stormwater management, land use and transportation, and food systems resilience. So in order for Urban Solutions to be as effective as possible, our client believes that it should simultaneously advance progress across all of these areas by identifying programs that can have a broad impact. And they refer to these as all-in initiatives. So the idea behind an all-in initiative is that one program that can have a cumulative impact at improving resilience across all of these areas is going to be more efficient than 4 separate programs that doesn't take into consideration the fact that these areas are connected. So as of right now, Urban Solutions is looking to roll out into 25 urban areas. And currently there's comprehensive work being done in energy efficiency and land use and transportation. So as a result, our client has asked us to look at food systems and stormwater management in an integrated manner to try and understand how these areas are connected, where there are parallels, and that will ultimately inform the development of all-in initiatives. So our specific task was to design an instrument for the NRDC to help cities determine essential baseline data for food systems and stormwater management. So this data collection process is really the first key step in trying to identify where these 2 areas are connected in order to inform the development of those all-in initiatives that our client is looking to identify. In order to design this instrument, we began with a comprehensive background research, which involved a literature review, city case studies, as well as interviews with nearly a dozen professionals, both inside academia as well as in relevant government offices, in order to try and understand what cities are currently doing to improve upon their resilience, as well as how they're doing it and how they're measuring their progress. So we used our key takeaways from that research in order to identify relevant metrics as far as resilience is concerned for food systems and stormwater management, and ultimately that really makes up the core of our instrument. And we hope that those metrics will help guide cities toward what type of data they need to collect in order to measure and improve their resilience. So throughout this process, we referenced various different models and resilience frameworks. We have the NRDC's own City Energy Project, which we relied heavily on, as well as the Global Reporting Initiative, Carbon Disclosure Project, and the Robin Hood Foundation. We used these various reports to try and see what their structures were and specifically how they were trying to measure resilience. So in order to design our instrument, we began in 2 distinct groups, one for food systems, one for stormwater management, in order to identify those relevant metrics. Once we gathered those metrics, we came back together and integrated them into our instrument and began trying to look for cross-cutting themes. So themes that are common in both food systems and stormwater management. We identified 5 of those and we refer to them as resilience themes. They include infrastructure, preparedness, environmental, risk or vulnerability, and socioeconomic. So by organizing our instrument by resilience theme, it will make it easier for our client to be able to identify where parallels may exist to inform the development of those all-in initiatives that will improve resilience for the cities. We have 35 key subject areas within our instrument. for food systems and stormwater management, as well as over 100 metrics that are both qualitative and quantitative in nature. So I'd like to go through a few examples of what we specifically developed and what our instrument looks like in practice, specifically regarding two instances where we were able to identify parallels between these two systems. So the first is under our infrastructure resilience theme, and the key subject area here is green spaces and urban agriculture. So one metric that we identified, which is particularly important for stormwater management, is what is the percentage of pervious versus impervious surface in a city? And more specifically, digging a bit deeper, out of those pervious surfaces, what percentage is used for urban agriculture, for example? So that really touches upon food systems resilience, because as we all know, urban agriculture provides fresh local vegetables for cities in order to sustain the community, but it also doubles as a pervious surface to help mitigate stormwater. So another example of a parallel we identified between food systems and stormwater management involves the use of pesticides and fertilizers in local agricultural production. So potential stormwater contamination can run off from these local farms. And although local farms are good for the food systems resilience of the urban area, in the event of a heavy rainstorm, they could pose potential problems. So this is just yet another area where these two areas are connected. And we believe that by identifying these parallels, it will help for cumulative impacts to improve resilience. So we have a certain set of major findings that we were able to identify through our development of this instrument. The first is that it's really critical to have solid baseline data that's easily accessible and reliable. And without that solid baseline data, it becomes very difficult to identify where there are parallels between these two areas. And that really gets to our second point, which is that there currently is an imbalance in availability and accessibility of data when comparing food systems to stormwater management. Stormwater management, we were able to find really easily accessible data that's reliable for things such as stormwater quality, flooding statistics for these cities. But when moving over to food systems, it's just not as well developed as stormwater management as far as what questions need to be asked for resilience in the food systems of an urban area, and also just simply what types of data you need to get and where you can go to get that data is really difficult. And lastly, each of these urban areas that Urban Solutions is looking to go into is going to have varying abilities to collect this data, as well as implement initiatives once the NRDC recommends those. So it becomes increasingly important to have an on-site presence to sort of help cities through this process. So in lieu of our findings, we have these following recommendations. The first is for the NRDC to create a food systems consortium to really sort of lead a forum and build out the food systems resilience sector. As I said, there are gaps in data right now based off of what our research and our time frame we had. But if they can sort of lead this forum, they could drive a national conversation and hopefully fill those gaps, and maybe partner with some cities such as Salt Lake City, which is particularly innovative when it comes to food systems resilience. Secondly, our research showed that the infrastructure resilience theme that we identified tended to produce the most cumulative impacts in all these areas as far as improving a city's resilience. So we recommend that the NRDC focus their first round of all-in initiatives on infrastructure-related programs. And lastly, when integrating our two areas into the broad urban solutions program, so that is energy efficiency and land use and transportation as well, we recommend that they explore partnerships in these cities and try and understand the connections that exist between the private, public, and social sectors. This becomes particularly important for food systems where there are many private actors which are working to deliver a public service in the form of food. So with that being said, I'd like to leave you with an example of the types of all-in initiatives that the NRDC is really looking to identify and what we hope our instrument will help cities collect the necessary data for. So this is a photo of an urban rooftop farm in New York City. Maybe some of you are familiar with it. It's the Brooklyn Grange. So not only does this remove nearly 1 million gallons of stormwater per year, but it also provides fresh local vegetables and produce for the community, as well as various activities like farming activities for its residents. This is really exactly the type of initiative that the NRDC is looking to identify. Not only does it get to stormwater management resilience, but it's food systems resilience, and it also improves the overall social well-being of the community. So if we can really better understand these connections between these areas, then we can better develop initiatives to sort of improve resilience. So thank you. I will take any of your questions you might have.
Good job, Tom. I just had a quick question about the scope of this project. It's obvious that these two issues that you guys looked at can be interrelated from the metrics that you looked at, but from taking that one step further, when you take these recommendations to a municipality, you'll have two different government agencies dealing with food security and stormwater. Did you guys look at any recommendations for how, from an organizational standpoint, you can get two agencies with differing mandates to collaborate on these kinds of initiatives?
Thank you. That's a really good question. We did look into try and determine how different cities, as far as our case studies, have handled this before and what types of offices they have set up in order to do just that. And we don't have a specific recommendation, but more a sort of our research showed that it can be done, but it needs to involve the collaboration of these multiple offices. So, for example, in New York City, we do have the Office of Recovery and Resiliency, and they are trying to do something along those lines with food systems and stormwater management to try and implement initiatives that can have an effect across both.
Other questions?
Did you consider water conservation? You know, in thinking about California, was water conservation considered throughout the project?
Yeah, so actually, while we were looking through and trying to identify what the relevant initiatives are in various cities as far as what they're doing for stormwater management, lots of rain catchment and rain barrels and things of that nature could really get to water conservation as well, and also help with stormwater mitigation. So that can be an idea for that.
Time for one more question if we have it over here.
Thanks, Tom. I was just curious about whether or not your instrument kind of gives an overall grade at the end, or if it gives different weights to different categories and subject areas.
Thanks. That's a great question. So we actually do have a system where we're ranking the metrics and subject areas as by levels of importance. And that's what we're planning on giving to our client. We don't have the capability really to rank them ourselves, and plus that can be sort of a subjective thing as far as what you believe to be most important. But we do have something that we are giving to our client that addresses that. Thank you.
Thank you.